Good morning, everyone, and welcome here from the Blizzard Arena in Burbank, California. We are ready to bring you guys WCS European Challenger. My name is Fear Dragon, and I am joined by a wonderful European man at the desk. How you doing today, Roddy?
I am doing fine, Ravi. I mean, I figured it was about time we got some Europeans on the show with all these amazing European players that you guys get to cast. And I heard that there were some issues with the observing as well. So, you know, that's why I'm here, Ravi.
I mean, of course, Jeff had a couple of complaints. I heard he called you over, and I've heard glorious things about your observing so far.
I mean, it's kind of a myth by now, but it's pretty good.
All right, we'll see if it lives up to those NASL days. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're not familiar with WCS Challenger, we have a pretty set format that we've been going for pretty much this entire season. We have, of course, the round of 16, which are going to be played out in group stages, and 2 players are going to be making out of each one of these groups going on to the playoffs, which is going to be a total to 8 players overall. How are you feeling about the format, Roddy?
I mean, it's a format we're all very familiar with, right? It's pretty straightforward. It's fair. It's honest. I mean, obviously, round robin can be fun, but I think round robin is better when we have bigger groups. You know, we have 6 or 8 players. For 4 men, I think this is the right format to use, and straightforward. I like it.
There you go. And of course, these players are going to be fighting for a $10,000 total prize pool. $1,600 going to first place. Even if you get knocked out in the very beginning of the groups, you still walk away with $400 and, of course, all those WCS points. And we've seen how important those WCS points can be throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think one year we had one player not making it by 10 points or even 5 points from one of those rounds into a qualifier. So, and you can see it as well. We're getting deeper into the year. We've already had 2 big WCS events. A lot of these guys, they start talking about BlizzCon. You know, in the beginning it was like, we have a good start to Leipzig, then it is what it is. But after Austin, it really does feel like things are getting more serious when it comes to those rankings.
Yeah, final opportunities, final chances to actually get those points and to make that qualification for BlizzCon. But of course, this particular event for WCS Challenger, we have a bunch of really awesome matches slotted for today because we're going over 1 group for Europe and 1 group for North America. This is the European group schedule. We got ShoWTimE versus souL to start things off. Then we're going to be moving on to Lambo versus Bly. After that, we'll be hopping into the winners and losers matches, and then that final decider match to see who's the last player that's going to make it out of the group.
A really fun group, I think. Especially souL is really the player that stands out for me because he's been hyped up for so freaking long. Everyone always talks about how good souL is. You ask any of the European pros, everyone gives him a lot of love, a lot of credits for all the right reasons, but it's about time he starts showing it a little more often in tournaments. I'm not saying that he's never done it, but he's way too inconsistent for, I think, how good he is.
Yeah, he shows little bits of it inconsistently. In like the middle of a tournament, he'll have good results, but then he won't have it throughout the entire tournament. I totally agree. But of course, for today's matches, we are going to be playing those best of 3s. And as mentioned before, 2 players are going to be making out of today's group. 2 players get knocked out, and unfortunately, they will just be WCS Challenger players, not WCS Playoff Challenger players.
I mean, what can I say? What can I add there, Ravi? That's spot on. Obviously, you know, to keep the hopes and dreams alive of making more money is always nice and challenging, but it's mostly making a deep run and potentially finishing top 4. I think that's the goal for almost everybody, unless your name is souL. I guess then it's just your goal is to win it again because that's what you do. But I think top 4 is the big goal for most of these players.
All right. Well, you mentioned before that our first match is going to be ShoWTimE versus souL. And this is, I think it's going to be an exciting one because not only we've talked a little bit about souL and kind of how he has been hyped up a lot, but there's also ShoWTimE, who I think has had both ups and downs a little bit in terms of his performance this year.
This year is short, but ShoWTimE has really done it all already, right? He came out blazing in Leipzig, made it all the way to the final, played just a great tournament, finally took down Neep as well on the big stage in his semis back then. And we all said, ShoWTimE is back, you know, ShoWTimE is back for real. And the funny thing is that he's always on top of the European ladder. Like, there is no given moment where you can look at the top 8 Grandmaster League and ShoWTimE is not in it. So he's obviously consistently very good. But yeah, then Austin happened, and it's kind of the same thing as last year, where Austin didn't really go his way either. But this time it was a round of 32 exit, and I mean, that's way too early for what everyone considers to be the best protos in Europe.
And I think even during last season of Challenger, he had some kind of, like, he did it fairly well eventually, but he had some iffy starts with his series versus Hellraiser, where he ended up losing one of those series. He came back, and he kind of started performing, but we've definitely seen some ups and downs. So it's a bit of a question, which ShoWTimE is going to be showing up? Is it the legendary ShoWTimE that is considered the best Protoss player in all of Europe, or is it going to be the ShoWTimE that we're like, you know, just is not quite there yet again?
And of course, if we think back about Austin, that just happened a couple of weeks ago, that's where he kind of struggled in that Protoss versus Terran matchup. And believe it or not, Ravi, more Protoses are losing against Terrans these days. So,
oh, is there a recent result that you're thinking of? You know, from the past 12 hours?
No spoilerino ever over here, Ravi. But it does seem that ever since the Marauder got buffed a little bit, Terrans are starting to do a little bit better. Is it totally 50-50 yet? Well, a lot of Terrans will still say that Protoss has the upper hand. But ShoWTimE has been very vocal about it, that he kind of feels like he struggles in this matchup from time to time. And that is really not that straight and forward and simple for him. And we saw it when he went up against Kalazur twice in WCS Austin just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, going into this first match, we do know what the first map is going to be. It's going to be Catalyst, as the game is getting loaded on up. Who is going to be able to prevail in this first match, and who's going to be able to set the pace for the group and I guess the day today? I know we've had some kind of one-sided matches throughout Challenger so far, but I think this should be a pretty fun one.
I think it was fun. I was sitting at home. Maybe if you guys are standing here, you always hope for the epicness, but trust me, as a viewer from my own comfortable gaming chair, I was enjoying the show, and I really saw some good StarCraft. I think this is going to be a really good series. Obviously, that's a dangerous thing to say. I'm so happy Jeff's not standing next to me right now, because in the moment the game ends in 6 minutes, he's like, so, about that really good series.
Well, Jeff doesn't pull back on anything that you say or is going to go well, right? Well, we're going to be starting down here in the bottom right. It's on top of the blue Protoss player. He is Team Arma's ShoWTimE.
Our legendary European Protoss, like you said. Of course, the WCS champion in the past and all-around Protoss stud. Going up against this man, a man that gets a lot of praise from his European pros. And I think the diehard people in the community know how good he is, but he doesn't show it often enough. Can he bring it today? It is souL. Of course, hailing from Poland. I think souL's biggest victory has been that victory over Stats at the Intel Masters Katowice back then.
Yeah, he's definitely had like individual impressive results. We were talking about this before, where he takes down some really strong players, but it's about keeping it up for the entirety of the tournament. The kind of nice thing today is like you make it out of the groups, and cool, you're into the playoffs. You don't have to worry about playing for at least a little while longer, and then you can kind of relax a little bit. But souL's also one of the players that I think does really well in just playing that kind of sort of more aggressive style, especially versus like players like Protoss players. I think that he loves playing very aggressive.
Awesome. Well, we've seen that first probe heading towards the other side of the map. Catalyst is one of those maps, Ravi, where every now and then you see some early proxies. It's not the worst map ever for that proxy barracks, but more and more Protosses are starting to do this thing that ShoWTimE is doing here with that cyber core that makes it harder to make that proxy Reaper barracks very effective. Now, if I think of Catalyst, I obviously don't think that this is necessarily a bad map for Protoss, because a lot of people look at Catalyst as a very straightforward, fair map. But it is kind of a shorter map, and I think certain Terran pushes, especially if their opening is successful, whatever they may decide to do, right? Whether they open up with Cyclones, that they used to do in the past, or Hellions, or a Widowmine drop, it doesn't matter. If the opening is successful, I think the next push becomes very, very powerful for Terran on this map, because this is a pretty short map. So I'm curious to see how ShoWTimE plays, how greedy he will be, when does he go up to 3 bases, stuff like that.
And that's all really important, because if you think about the kind of characteristics of ShoWTimE, everyone knows, the entire scene knows that ShoWTimE is a macro player. He is a super late game player. That's where he finds most of his comfort. He can throw out a cheese here and there, as he's shown like once or twice, but he usually is the guy who you're seeing go toward the, the 10, 15, 20 minute mark and really show dominance in that kind of stage of the game. So I would love to see some kind of plays from souL that, ooh, okay, denies the probe from getting in.
In a dream scenario, the Marine is out of position, and then the barracks flies up, and then you build a pylon right next to this reactor, and that's when the Terran players get very, very, very sad. So we've got an interesting sort of proxy here, as that starport is being positioned outside of the main base. I don't think that's something we have to look too much into, and I think there is a good chance that ShoWTimE may scout it with his Adept, but kind of awkward.
Well, I think the Adept normally won't even path over there, which is kind of the nice thing. So I suppose if the Adept does make its way into like the main base or something, it won't be able to see like, oh, is there a tech lab on this starport? Is there a reactor? Like, what are you doing with that starport exactly? Or the Liberators coming out? And it's actually just going to be medevac, in fact.
Yeah. I'm a little bit surprised by this opening. It's 2 Hellions into 2 Cyclones. This is a build that we've obviously seen in the past, but I feel it's stronger the other way around when they open up with the 2 Cyclones, because then obviously the Hellions are a little bit faster, so they can just reinforce and you can go to the other side of the map a little bit earlier, and obviously applying pressure earlier is better. Now there's going to be another Cyclone behind this. I assume that souL's going to bring a few SCVs as well to potentially repair this. Maybe at first he's just going to you know, try to get a little fancy here with a medevac drop. We've seen Bjorn do some crazy things with this in the past. He canceled the other Cyclone though, right?
Yeah, ShoWTimE is also just sitting at home and he's banking these oracles actually. So he waits until he has 2 of them before moving out. He's going to encounter the Hellions in the center of the map, but the medevac drop is going to be coming in at a really nice time. There is a really juicy pylon there that can depower the Stargate and one of the gateways.
But the Phoenix does pop, and that is very, very important. It is indeed an important pylon, but having that one Phoenix out is going to make the life of ShoWTimE a little bit easier here. One of these oracles taking a lot of damage. The oracle will finally go down, but not before, I think, in the end, this medevac must go down as well, as the Hellions have shown up in the natural. It's 4 Hellions, and there is no shield battery here, Ravi.
Oh my god, so many workers going down to not only the Hellions, but even the Cyclones in the main base are still taking out some of these Adepts, taking out some of the units. And man, ShoWTimE having a little bit of trouble dealing with that crazy aggression.
Wow, 21 workers going down in a 5-minute game. I mean, in the end, it made sense. I was really confused about Cyclone number 3 by souL, because I'm like, what are you going to bring the SCVs then, or where is this going to go? But then he canceled that Cyclone. He made extra Hellions, and it's safe to say that ShoWTimE needs to start doing some damage on the other side of the map now. It's really cool to pull all the units into the main base with the medevac and the 2 Cyclones, and then the 4 Hellions show up. And especially if Protoss doesn't have a shield battery, which I'm surprised by that he doesn't have a battery on Catalyst. I mean, there's almost no way that you can keep your probes alive at that point.
Okay, well, the Siege Tank is sieged up in a nice spot here for souL. The Adepts are probably going to try and shade somewhere onto them, but the longer that ShoWTimE waits, the harder it's going to be to break this. And, I mean, he has to commit to this, right? He's so far down in workers.
Yeah, he is still building probes, so that's the only thing that makes me say, like, maybe not, but he obviously wants to get something done, but I'm honestly not sure how much he will truly get done here. Unless the Phoenixes sweep in, lift that tank, and the Oracle gets free reign over the SCV mineral line or something. That is nice. I mean, it was nice when he got the Viking, but then he ended up losing his own Phoenix as well. And these are trades that ShoWTimE simply cannot afford at this point.
Okay, Adepts are going to be shading in. Are they going to commit to this, or are they just getting some scouting information? Looks like they're going to cancel. He sees also a lot more barracks being added on here for souL, and I feel like the kind of time to try and get anything done. He's not even really warping in aggressively anymore.
ShoWTimE's army is going to be so sad a minute from now when Stim is done, +1 weapons is done for the Terran player. This is nice. That is one way to potentially buy a lot of time. But ShoWTimE needs more than just buying a little bit of time, which you normally need against pushes like this. No, he needs to buy an insane amount of time. And I have no idea how to do that. Maybe with a quick prism, open up like that. But souL is not crazy. souL knows how much damage he did. And then he also knows that the moment he makes his first real push with Stim and +1, I mean, ShoWTimE needs a small miracle to turn this around.
Well, third base lands. The Adepts are going to be able to deny this for a little bit. There aren't actually that many Marines here, but with the Siege Tank sieging up, it's not really something you want to engage into, especially with the Widow Mines there. So they're going to do their best. They're actually going to be able to pick up a lot of SCVs, with the Oracles getting a lot of damage in the natural.
Yep, the Oracle's flying in, pulling these units out of position, getting a couple SCV kills, and a few SCVs were misrallied towards his orbital. So this is nice. ShoWTimE strikes back, has now once again created a worker lead for himself, which is obviously where you want to be as pros in this matchup. It's still not good. I'm not going to sit there and say that it's good, because you look at what ShoWTimE is actually working with. All of the units that he currently has are very weak.
Oracle's coming back in, and one of them getting a bit low, but he keeps them both alive. And even just picking off some of the Marines is going to hurt that big attack a little bit. It does end up losing that eventually, but okay, you know, a wise man named M. Canning once said that if you have a disruptor, you can have a dream, and he has that robotics bay on the way. Do you like the idea of disruptors or Colossus in this situation?
I mean, normally I would like Colossus, but given the state of the game, I think Colossus are better because he needs a comeback unit. And did I say Colossus? I meant
Disruptors are better, yeah.
Because he needs a comeback unit. Going Colossus when you're this far behind in a game, that's just most of the time not truly going to work out. I must say, I like the way that ShoWTimE has been playing. Well, even though this is risky and he's going to end up losing quite a few Adepts, but he got a few more SCVs, he's buying more time, but obviously the moment Stim is down, which it is right now, the army of souL is simply way more powerful than the army of ShoWTimE. So disruptors make total sense here.
Double drop on the right-hand side does get caught by the Phoenix, by the way. It's heading into the main base now. And there's actually a decent amount of forces here, including a couple of Widow Mines that are going to complicate things. Disruptor shot could help and force these units to actually pick up, but the Twilight Council also goes down, so it's going to delay any additional upgrades. And man, they just get the most amazing positioning behind that mineral line.
And because souL is doing already very well with his double drop, he's also allowing his main army to freely run to the other side of the map. It's going to show up at his nexus here, and ShoWTimE knows what time it is. GG. souL takes a pretty convincing 1-0 lead. Off the back of that, I mean, the proxy starboard, I'm not sure how much that really mattered with the build, but the Cyclones in the main pulling all the Stargate units out of position, the Gateway units out of position, and I don't know how many more PVDs I have to see, but Protoss has no shield battery in the natural on Catalyst, but I feel it almost doesn't matter what build you go up against. You need a battery on that map.
Arguably, though, would the shield battery have helped that much with that particular like movement path where the Cyclones go to the main base, the Hellions go to the natural?
No, I mean, he would still lose probes, absolutely, because it's if 4 Hellions in an exposed middle line, yeah, not even a shield battery is going to out-heal 4 Hellions. But it does help, especially the moment you finally pick off that first Hellion, then you split your probes a little bit, and that's really where the shield battery comes to shine. He would have still lost a lot of workers, especially if he would have chased that medevac and the 2 Cyclones into the main, but instead of losing 21, maybe he ends up losing 11 or 12, and that's already a lot better.
All right. Well, we definitely see that souL is showing up in fine spirits. I know he's a very passionate young man who's always looking for those results and gets very frustrated when he isn't able to find them. So it's good to see him playing well. But ShoWTimE also a player that, again, like he's always kind of saying, like, okay, is ShoWTimE really going to be that super dominant player that we kind of expect of him? He's kind of cursed himself to just have really good results.
I still think he is, but I think he just struggles a little bit against very good Terrans. And we always talk about how there aren't that many super good Terran players in Europe. And it just seems that if you are one of those select few really good Terrans, yeah, you can actually take series of ShoWTimE because maybe he doesn't get enough proper practice against it.
All right. Well, the next map is going to be Acid Plant. We're going to all the old standard maps of Catalyst and Acid Plant. Wouldn't be surprised to see something like Lost and Found, of course, for the next game or something. But I think that as soon as the players are ready, we can actually get started.
Is Lost and Found your new favorite of the current map pool?
You know, actually, my new favorite is, and it's funny because it's partially because of a bunch of the games that you've played on it. But it's, I keep thinking it's called Wind Waker, and I know it's not called Wind Waker. It's called Dreamcatcher. Dreamcatcher. I really like Dreamcatcher. I think it just gets so dynamic when you get to the 3rd and 4th.
I think the rocks are fun on Dreamcatcher.
Yes.
That is actually one of the maps where I feel like, okay, rocks were well done. Just like Eastwatch, by the way, last season, that was also finally a map where I felt like the rocks truly found their place. They made sense. You could buy time with it. You can have some good plays with it. But Dreamcatcher, I don't know. I don't like the ramp. It's hard to wall off, man. I struggle with those walls, Ravi.
I know.
Those walls.
Well, if I had to say that my favorite map to play on is probably Lost and Found because I've been taking inspiration from the legendary Printf and cannon rushing every single game on that map.
That map is well, we don't have a PvP right now, so I can't talk about it too much. But that map for cannon rushes, actually the only way to really deal with it is just preemptively put a probe on the low ground, be like, just in case. I've had games where 3 out of 4 games I got cannon rushed on Lost and Found, and if I just have my probe there, they just leave within like a minute and a half because they're like, hey, that's not supposed to happen. I was like, well,
you just trap the probe in there with a little pylon wall off,
like, well, everyone cannon rushes on this map, so you may as well.
All right, well, Acid Plant is a more normal looking map. We'll see how things play out on this one. souL went for the kind of tricky little shenanigans, but like you said, I don't know if it really had a huge impact, but still, it just kind of goes to show you the kind of player that souL is. He likes dealing out and throwing out some kind of weird stuff.
And I think we're going to get some more weird stuff as one SCV is already heading out, and I feel that's a little bit too early. Spotting on the right bottom side of Acid Plant, your Polish Terran player, souL. Wrapping Protoss, by the way. Do you think that's genuine, Ravi? Do you think he just lost the Protoss race?
You know, I'm sure that he is a huge, huge fan of all Protoss players everywhere, especially if you have a conversation with him. But spawning up here in the top left, we have our blue Protoss player from Team Arma. He is ShoWTimE. So, Roddy, we do have the gas guys are coming down alongside a proxy barracks from souL. What do you usually see these kind of things go into? Is it generally Reapers or concussive shelled Marauders? Or
I think it might be a single Reaper at first, but then I think it's also going to be a proxy factory because he's taking both refineries, and this is not a great Reaper map. The only way for Reapers to get into the main bane is basically you have to go through this point, where if there's an Adept or a Stalker there, it's already going to be a little bit harder. Now, ShoWTimE is going to scout, and if I'm ShoWTimE, I won't drop my expand just yet. Why expand if you know your opponent is one basing anyway and is really committing to this, is investing a lot of early game economy? It would make your life a little bit easier to not expand immediately, but it seems like ShoWTimE does not care about that.
Okay. It's very, very obvious and apparent that there is some sort of proxy going on. I mean, unless he's playing versus Masa, and Masa is just proxying his normal buildings right outside his main base, but that's clearly not the case in this situation. Especially with the double gas, you kind of know.
Well, now I think ShoWTimE is going to be very happy with his decision, because now he's going to see that the factory is being built at home. And the moment that the factory is built at home, you obviously know that your Nexus shouldn't die, because Nexus don't really fall against Reapers. I'm kind of surprised to see a proxy Reaper on Acid Plant. I don't think this is the dream map for it. Whoa, okay, Marauders and Cyclones then maybe? That would make a little bit more sense. Let's see if this Reaper can get anything done.
Yeah, the Reaper, of course, is here to get some scouting information and just kind of annoy and harass. And of course, that grenade that it has, a KDA charge, can be very useful later on in trying to mess with the Stalkers, mess with the Adepts, and trying to pick them off. So if you can keep it alive, it's very important, and he does keep it alive. There is that concussive shells research coming up, the Marauders being made, and there are the Cyclones, Roddy.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Oh, it's going to be a Stargate over here for ShoWTimE. I was wondering if he was perhaps thinking, like, maybe this is a moment where I could go for that robotics facility just to crank out one of those Immortals. Stargate it is. And now I wonder, is it going to be Oracle? Oracle obviously quite good against bio units, especially, you know, Marauders, because they don't shoot up. And obviously Marines without stim are not that great against Oracles either, but I don't know. I actually think a Void Ray would be decent. The only thing about Void Rays is they sometimes feel like clunky, silly units. I even believe that if you get a battery up very quickly, Phoenixes can be very efficient against these builds as well. I'm expecting an Oracle because they always make an Oracle, but I think this is going to be pretty hard for ShoWTimE. I'd go Void Ray now, especially after losing my Adept. I'd be like, oh, okay, I think I need a Void Ray.
Yeah, I don't think that ShoWTimE really expected this. Definitely not even getting shield battery or anything up, but now the pylon, the low ground's going to get knocked down, so it's going to be even harder to defend that natural. And bunkers going up to make things even worse. You see a lot of probes pulled here. Is ShoWTimE looking to try and break that low ground area?
Yeah, I don't think he wants to lose his Nexus, that's for sure. Even though he's changing his mind for now, there is a small chance that maybe he ignores this and sends the Oracle to the other side of the map. But I think he's gonna try, but there's a Cyclone, there's a second Cyclone on the way already. Oracle's gonna try to fight a Cyclone. There's still an SCV that could potentially repair. I don't know if this is going good for ShoWTimE though.
Yeah, he is going to be able to pick off one of those Cyclones, but now the Oracle's basically out of energy, so it's a dead weight, and we still have a Marauder alive, we still have the Reaper alive, we have a couple of these bunkers still going down, and ShoWTimE just doesn't look like he has the units anymore to defend the natural.
No, this Nexus is going to go down, and that's really bad, because now it's 2 extra gates as well, but that means there's just no real follow-up over here for ShoWTimE. What are you going to do? Just 1 gate, Stargate, and then 2 more gates. You don't have a Twilight, there's no Robo, there's no way to be aggressive. Losing the Nexus while souL obviously has been expanding on the other side of the map. These Oracles need to do a lot of work. I think we have...
Oh, Widowmine's being made, so he has to be so careful with the control of these Oracles. If he loses either one of them, that could very well just put a huge damper in any kind of aggression that he wants to put on to even up this game.
Ravi.
Oh my god, that positioning. The barracks is hiding it. He can't see it. Oh, and a Viking pops out. Wow. GG. souL takes a 2-0 victory over ShoWTimE. Moves on to the winners match in a super nice and solid series from him.
I think I jinxed it. Instead, I think these are going to give you some really good games. I hear Jeff already from all the way out there.
You can already hear his cackle as soon as we get back to the green room.
Clean builds by souL, obviously very well executed aggression by him. I think you can definitely be questionable of some of the decisions that ShoWTimE made. I really feel on Catalyst, I cast and see so many games where there is no shield battery in the natural. And I thought ever since Deer lost against Maru, you know, a while ago when he lost on Catalyst against a couple Cyclones and Hellions, I felt that from that point on, almost every Protoss always got at least 1 battery on Catalyst.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. I think it would have helped a little bit. And game 2, I think like there's all 3 Stargate units are pretty viable there. I actually think a Robo is probably the best. You just get an Immortal out and then you start fighting Marauders and Cyclones. But I think you can make a case for Phoenixes as long as you can get a battery up in the natural. You can get Zealot, Stalker, Stalker, Stalker with a battery. Oracles, they can work, but it's so risky because, like you said, they run out of energy so quick. And Void Rays are very powerful in the straight-up fight. The problem is when you play against people that are as good as souL, you never really get that fight where it's like, well, let's stand here and fight the Void Ray forever, you know? Like they're very good in abusing the immobility of the Void Ray. So it's tricky, but it's safe to say that the decision that ShoWTimE made wasn't the right one.
Yeah. But souL still plays a really, really fantastic series. He also manages to do it by actually being able to hide a lot of like maybe the macro styles that he was going to go for. Yeah. But we can see that that next match is going to end up being Bly versus Lambo. We also got, of course, ShoWTimE facing off versus the loser. Then, of course, souL versus the winner. But, ladies and gentlemen, Lambo versus Bly is going to be coming up in just a little bit. Don't go anywhere.